earlier today, we got some updates as far as the renovations in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes home. PNC Arena is regarded, and we will talk about that and what we want to see and what is taking so long with it in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and I am once again joined by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker, and you are listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Thursday night, Friday morning, whenever you are listening to us. And earlier today, Andrew, we finally got some updates in terms of the long awaited renovations to PNC Arena. News and Observer put out an article earlier today, which the link to that will be in the description of this episode if you want to go read it. But got some updates on that, and it's been a very long road to get here. Obviously, first and foremost, pandemic did put a delay on this stuff, as well as the renovations to Carter Finley Stadium. They're just now installing the new scoreboard that was supposed to be done a couple years ago. So that was to be expected, but it's taking a while. And in terms of that article, we're obviously going to be summing this up a lot. It's, kind of coming down to the funding for it. Who's going to be fronting the bills for this stuff? And, I've talked about this at length on the show before by myself with Kenton from Locked On Wolfpack, our roommate, essentially, to PNC Arena. And it's getting pretty darn frustrating with this for me, because, Dundon said in this article, they want to stay here. And they are, they're firm yes of doing whatever needs to be done to get this stuff done. But the thing with that is they're not wanting to sign a long-term lease agreement until they get this stuff on the road. And I feel that, it's getting pretty frustrating. We're going to deal, in my opinion, of what's taking so long, my frustrations with it. But Andrew, I want to know your thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that you just said about the Hurricanes not wanting to sign the long-term lease until this stuff kind of gets hammered out and agreed upon and ultimately set on a path to being done, I think it makes sense to me, because you look at PNC Arena.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought about this. That extension they did sign, I believe it was like a year or two ago. They have an opt-out in 2024. I think it runs through 28, 29, but they can opt out in 24. But continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, I mean, it just makes sense because, PNC Arena is currently very, very outdated compared to other arenas around the league. You're referencing this very good, informative, detailed article from Luke DeCock. Highly recommend checking that out. But, one of the first things it says is that Gary Bettman, when he's been here, has basically said, hey, as far as the league is concerned, this is overdue. This needs to get done. And I think he's right. And I think the Hurricanes are within their rights to not necessarily want to commit long-term to PNC Arena until they have assurances that those modernizations and upgrades to the arena, to the surrounding area, to make it a more desirable destination, until they know that they can get those done.
Yeah, I know. And it's, when he visited last year, it did feel like it gave, Centennial Authority, City of Raleigh, Wake County, NC State, a little bit of kick in the pants, to get the ball rolling on this stuff. Because part of me feels like, they're still used to the old regime of not really wanting to do anything. Dundon is not that way. He wants this stuff done. And by no means is PNC a dump or anything like that. It's not like Oakland Coliseum where nobody cares.
There's no
Obviously we feel
possums at
sorry
PNC
for
that we
the
know of.
Oakland A's and their fans. It's well maintained, but it's a time capsule. It looks like it's out of the late 90s, early 2000s. Frankly, I think this may make some people mad, but kind of like Greensboro Coliseum. I was up there for Monday Night Raw a few weeks ago and kind of had an old people smell, not going to lie, when you walk in. And it is a bit dated. It needs to be brought into the 21st century or the 2020s. And Greensboro Coliseum, that aside, that's kind of its own thing. But here in PNC Arena, a professional sports team plays there. And you, especially now having gone around to other arenas and seeing what the more modern ones look like, it makes this whole thing even more frustrating. Going to Little Caesars Arena, seeing just how nice and how modern that one is. Like even Spectrum Center in Charlotte, it needs a little bit of work in my opinion, but it's still a more modern and up to date than PNC Arena. And again, I feel the other parties involved with this, they're still wanting to drag their feet. They're like the old regime of not really wanting to do anything, and that's not the case anymore. It's 2023. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, just for clarity, based on Jared's comments about Greensboro Coliseum, Jim Boeheim will not be joining us on this podcast today. But
yeah,
no, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a lot of different things that could be done just in terms of making it look more modern, a little bit more streamlined, adding some, more like restaurant options in and around the arena, different things like that. And if you hear Tom Dundon, this is something that he's very passionate about. I listened yesterday to an interview with him on Joe Ovius and Joe Giglio's podcast. Highly, highly recommend checking that out if you have not, because it was good stuff. But, he was talking about this stuff, with the upgrades to the arena and the surrounding area and the things that they want to do. He was talking about wanting to improve parking and traffic because, his thing he said was like, we're a good team. We have people who want to come here and give us their money, and we're making it harder for them to do so. And he talked about how frustrating that is to him. So no, I think, one thing in all this too, it's nice to have now an owner who cares, who wants all of this, who wants to be around, who wants to make the product and the arena and everything around it better for the people who are consuming that product.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that he outright said they want to stay here because you remember when he bought the team, there was talk, do they get relocated when their lease is up? It's not the case. They want to stay here in Raleigh at PNC Arena.
And not to interrupt you, but that talk was always silly. I mean, he said that from the moment he bought the team. There was never any substance of any kind to any of that. That was just same thing as, the Quebec relocation rumors before he bought the team. That was just people saying stuff to say stuff.
Yeah. It kind of like what's going on with Arizona right now. Given, they may, we'll see. You can go listen.
There might be a little more substance with that one.
But, steering it back to the Hurricanes and, their deal right now, it is very frustrating because Dundon and the Hurricanes, they're all in. In that article from Luke DeCock, he mentioned it. One issue with the stadium series, as good as it went in the football stadium and all that, traffic. Like you said already, with Dundon, there, Bettman got stuck in traffic, just like all of us. And that's something that really needs to be addressed. These little tiny things that should have been taken care of 10, 15 years ago, but nobody wanted to do that. And now it has piled up and is going to cost more money. Again, like we said at the top of the episode, COVID really really threw a wrench in this. This was something that was supposed to start a couple years ago. They weren't able to because of COVID. Now the price of the materials to get this stuff done has gone up. So we do know, again, that is part of the problem here. And, all parties involved know that is a problem. And, that's not something that, folks are, ignoring there. But it is very, very frustrating. And, we talked a little bit about what we feel is taking so long for this. And we will continue to talk about that right after this quick break, folks. Now, the Stanley Cup final and the NBA finals are underway between the NBA finals are between the Miami Heat, Denver Nuggets. Stanley Cup finals is fixing to kick off between the Florida Panthers and Vegas Golden Knights. And if you're wanting to place your bets on who will lift the Larry O'Brien Trophy, who will lift the Stanley Cup, you can do so at FanDuel Sportsbook, because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So, if you get game one wrong, FanDuel's got you covered. There's no better place to bet on all of the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, getting back to what is taking so long, I gave my thoughts already on this. I feel that, Centennial Authority, the folks that, manage PNC Arena, NC State, the city of Raleigh, and Wake County as a whole, I feel that they are, used to the old regime of Carmanos and all of them of not really wanting to invest in the team. And we know small things have been done to the arena, like the little walk-through shops, the Shake Shack, and other little things getting added in. But as far as like large scale stuff getting done to this arena to bring it into the 2020s, they're taking forever to do this. And I know funding is obviously the biggest thing here. But it's kind of a thing of like, you have all of these parties involved. It's not like it's just the city or the county. There are multiple parties here that can help front the bill for this. It's not just going to be coming from our taxes. It's not just going to be coming from Centennial Authority, not just the Hurricanes, not just NC State. It's going to be all of these parties put together. And you have your main tenant, your big money draw, that's willing to, they're down to do business, but everyone else is dragging their feet. For you, Andrew, what do you feel is taking so long for this?
Yeah, I think you hit that pretty well. It's a very complicated process, and understanding how all of this works. And a good friend of mine, Brian LeBlanc at Canes Country, actually wrote a really good piece 3 years ago that we can link in the show description as well, that you guys can look about, because we've talked about the Centennial Authority and kind of how their relationships with the Hurricanes and everything works. But the important thing to remember is the Hurricanes do not own PNC Arena. They operate it. The Centennial Authority owns the arena. The Hurricanes operate it. NC State men's basketball operates it. And, I would think, the things that Dundon wants to do would be beneficial to NC State as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, when you have this kind of a business and this many moving parts and this many people involved, it's going to get complicated. It's going to take time, especially when, like you have talked about, people are more used to a different way of doing things than what Tom Dundon is trying to do here. And that's ultimately get stuff done, make stuff better, not be okay with the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree there. It's very frustrating. One thing I talked about with Kenton from Locked On Wolfpack last summer, when we were starting to finally, when it was looking like the ball was starting to get rolling, was how this could also benefit NC State. We know just how this can benefit the Hurricanes of, bringing the modern arena in, helping attract free agents, helping host other events. Obviously Stadium Series is great, but once the renovations are done, you figure they're going to make a push for an all-star game, for a draft, for another outdoor game. And that's not going to happen in the arena in the current state it is in. Again, like we said, it is by no means a dump. It is a very well maintained arena, but it does look like a time capsule with its fixtures, with the checker tile. It looks like it's from the late 90s, early 2000s. When they hosted the draft back in 04, yeah, state of the art then. When they hosted the All-Star game in 2011, little dated, but okay. But now that's not the case. You look at the other arenas, T-Mobile Arena out in Vegas, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Enterprise in St. Louis, the new UBS Arena up in Long Island. You look at these new ones. I mentioned Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. You look at these new ones like, come on, the Hurricanes have fallen way, way behind. And the longer that they put this off, it is going to get more and more expensive. And you look also, taking, the sports out of it, taking the Hurricanes, taking state out of it. And also, quick, before we do that, state, you get that updated arena. Maybe the ACC and the NCAA tournament would look at that and be like, holy crap, they got a really nice home. Let's host something there. Having a first or a second round in the NCAA tournament be at PNC Arena,
which it has in the past.
Yeah, it has.
Duke lost to Mercer at PNC Arena.
I remember that.
So that's a house of horrors for Duke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other interesting thing that I heard Dundon say in that interview that he did with Joe Ovius and Joe Giglio was that, if the Hurricanes get this done and get the lease agreement and the agreement for these upgrades to the NHL satisfaction, there would be certain agreements from the NHL baked in for things the Hurricanes want, like future outdoor games. He actually said, Dundon himself actually said he's not as interested in hosting a draft or all-star game as more outdoor games, just because he feels like that's what's most beneficial to the Hurricanes in this market. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think I think this is something that can benefit all parties if they can get it moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and steering away from sports like I was originally going to do, with the way Raleigh, Wake County, and the surrounding area is growing so fast. It's in the top 5 of of growing markets, best places to live. So many people are coming here, as frustrated as we get with the traffic and the jokes we make about all the New York fans and Cary. It is growing a lot. And you look at the city side of things, or Centennial Authority side of things, they could host more events there. Last year you had an Apex Legends tournament be hosted there. They could bring in more money-making things like that. Other artists, to play shows or comedy shows or whatever there. Host more events when you have a state-of-the-art arena like that. A booker, for a band or an artist or what, they're going to see, they got this new state-of-the-art arena. Let's do a show there. That's going to be fun. Or PNC Arena will make a push for that. Make a push for another Apex tournament or Call of Duty. I mean, Epic Games is in Cary, a Fortnite tournament. You could do these things and bring more people into the city, and have just all these events where you can make more money. And at the end of the day, that's been the running theme throughout this, is the money. But if they invest in it, people are going to come. And you're kind of seeing that, like with the Hurricanes, Tom Dundon has invested in this team. People are coming to see the team now. The team is good. Talked about it with Wade Minter last week. He remembers the days where there's more visiting fans, the arena was half full, and all that stuff. It's not the case now. People are seeing this arena. now. And, there's a lot of folks coming through. You're going to want to make this as nice of an experience as possible.
If you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. Now, obviously, with all this comes, things that we want to see. There was a little bit of talk in that article of Luke DeCock that he put out today, and we will mention that as well as other things we want to see with the PNC Arena renovations right after this quick break. All right, it is time to talk about things we want to see. In the article from Luke DeCock, did mention having a sports book location in PNC Arena, as well as an off location one as well. Obviously, that's going to be a big thing, big money maker. For the Hurricanes. I'm not sure. I'm not a betting man, so I'm not sure if they'd be able to do that on state basketball games. So we aren't really going to touch that. I don't know if they can do that or not with it being college athletics. But
they have to legalize sports betting in the state as a whole, because that hasn't been done. I think there's pretty, good optimism that the NCGA is going to do that as early as next year. But don't hold me to this, but I think you could, because I know, like, in states where it is legal, like using the different sites and whatnot, you can bet on college sports. So I would think you would be able to.
Yeah. And, if you are able to, that's another thing for NC State, but, sticking to the Hurricanes, that's something they're wanting to do. Put that in there as far as where it would go. That was mentioned in the article. Kind of don't know. They don't have a lot of space, in terms of doing something like that. But when they're able to do the renovations and get this plan, set, maybe a little bit of an expansion, to put that in. They mentioned, the eye, but that's not feasible because there's a catering kitchen right above it. So they can't do that. But, definitely, like we mentioned earlier, some new dining options in there. That's going to be big. Maybe do something in terms of an expanded version of the eye, because sometimes at games it does get really freaking cramped in there. And having gone to Little Caesars Arena, seeing how big the team store is in there. Same thing at Spectrum Center, how big it is there. I would definitely love for them to expand that out. Obviously, they have the little satellite locations throughout the arena. That's fine and great. Yeah, those can stay. Obviously they would, but the main one of expanding that, I would love to see that. Obviously, we talked about already. Updated fixtures and updated tile. Just the little, or not little things, but the big, like the basic things of, like, not having a sign that looks like it's from the year 2000. Little things like that. That's going to be important. I would like some better seats, to be honest. Not that their seats are bad, but man, the Little Caesars Arena seats were so comfortable. But yeah, some new seats. That would be really nice. Obviously, they got the new scoreboard. That was great. So that's at least done. One thing I've mentioned before that I would really like them to do is kind of redo how they have all the banners up in the rafters. NC State has a lot up there. And it would be nice and the Hurricanes, like we mentioned with them, the other parties, thinking, they're doing business with the old regime. This is not the old regime. This is the new Hurricanes. They are hanging banners year after year, and it's looking a little wonky up there with how they're having to hang stuff. So I'd like them to redo some of that stuff up there. Make that a bit more clean and less cluttered. I've mentioned, at Little Caesars Arena, how they have the things where they kind of like raise and lower the banners. If State doesn't want to, consolidate some of their banners, or take some down, they don't want to consolidate and have them in those things where they can, kind of raise them up, or have them, rolled up, or maybe or some of them rolled up, for Hurricanes games. And that way it's not as, cluttered, have the Hurricanes ones down. And then, vice versa, for state games, do something like that. That would be nice, because with the track the Hurricanes are on right now, there's not a whole lot of rafter space left. So I would like them to see something done with that, as well as just general updating as well. But as far as in PNC Arena, what would you like to see, Andrew?
Yeah, in terms of in the arena, we talked. You talked about more dining options. Definitely the seats. The seats that they have now are very small. They're very, they're not very comfortable. You go to like a Durham Bulls game, the seats are so much bigger, so much better. So I'd like to see those upgraded a little bit. More dining options. I'd love to see a cookout milkshake kiosk in there. One thing that I think could be really cool to be added would be, they're doing this Hurricanes Hall of Fame. As that continues to grow and expand, you go to different places. Like I've been to the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. They have a huge like team Hall of Fame that almost functions as like a team museum type thing with like plaques and pictures of like, obviously the people in the Hall of Fame, different events. Like I think something like that, and with like a timeline put up in there, I think that'd be something really cool that the Hurricanes could do somewhere in the arena.
Yeah.
You'd obviously have to expand the arena a little bit to have space for something like that.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
It would be. And the other thing that's been talked about a lot with this, I think, is developing the land around the arena to put more stuff around there. Because right now, like you go to a Hurricanes game, you want to go somewhere to eat before after the game, you're going to Backyard Bistro or you're driving up the road to where like Radino's and all that is on Edwards Mill. There's so much empty land. You look at what this stuff like this is done for places like Atlanta and Chicago where they've built their quote unquote ballpark districts. There's plenty of space around the arena for things like restaurants, hotels, shops. And then what does that ultimately bring in for the community? Jobs, lots and lots of jobs.
That as well.
I think that would be a win-win. Well, jobs, money kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree there. That's something that's been confirmed. Heck, here on the show with Walt Ruff, he confirmed that a while back that it's going to be the surrounding area as well. And I kind of I know, yeah, like you mentioned, Backyard Bistro. It's like one or two hotels over there near that. There's the
and don't get me wrong, I love Backyard Bistro, but we gotta have more.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no options. There's the Bojangles as well, and then there's that. I haven't been over there, but there's that little tiny district or whatever, kind of across the street on Edwards Mill. I know there's a place called Brew that a friend of mine goes to a lot before games, but I don't really know what's over there, but it's not a lot. And like you said, there's so much land around there to be developed, and like you said, that's going to bring in jobs and money for the community. And then also, with, that is, like we mentioned earlier, that's going to attract other events to PNC Arena, because one thing that has been talked about in the past is how there's nothing around there. And, it's kind of sucks too, because, you want to go for a pregame drink or meal or whatever. Backyard Bistro is your only option, and that's that gets packed quick on game days, and with so the Hurricanes on the rise, Dundon wanting to host more state outdoor games and events, you have those other hotels right there. That's going to be attractive to the people coming in, and then in terms of what they're wanting to develop, they're looking at the mixed use kind of thing. So I'm kind of expecting a North Hills type thing. If you're in Raleigh, you know what I'm talking about there. I'm kind of expecting something like that. Whenever they do start that construction, I am expecting that. And, you have, that, when free agents are visiting, like, because that has been a complaint, from players in the past on those player surveys of nothing being around there. You have this, nice, district or whatever, built right there. You bring in, a free agent or whatever, like, oh, that's a real nice apartment building right there, and it's right next to the arena. Yeah, that can be attractive to them as well, and of bringing in folks. Obviously, I know NC State, it's different in terms of that kind of thing, but you're trying to recruit people. You have that nice state of the art arena. You have a nice area around it that could help them attract players as well. Obviously, I know they couldn't necessarily do as much as NHL free agent, but that's something that could
NIL
benefit
now,
NC State as well.
yeah, with NIL now you almost can. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that all of this stuff just makes so much sense of wanting to do this kind of thing. And Dundon also, mentioned an off-location sports book place, which would be expected. One thing I would also like to see, since it obviously be, right in there, depending on what they're able to do with the eye, an off-location eye location or an off arena location for the eye that could maybe have an expanded selection or whatnot, because they'd have more space, because we talked about how it could be a little difficult to expand the location in the store or in the arena.
Well, I think that's a great idea because you had gosh, I don't know, it's probably been at least a decade or more since they closed it, but there at one point there was an eye in Crabtree Valley Mall right by the food court, but since then, I mean, unless you like want to buy some stuff at Dick's Sporting Goods, there's really no place outside the arena in Raleigh to go buy. That's a great option to go buy Hurricanes gear. So yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but I think if you're building this area around there, an off-location team store, sort of like what NC State has with the red and white shop, would be a great idea.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and obviously, a little bit different, but that sports bar that's sort of kind of attached to Durham Bulls stadium, where they have that like balcony where you can like sit out and watch the game or whatever. That would be kind of cool of having like another like sports bar there close to the arena. Obviously, you can't like sit on the porch and watch it or anything like that. But just play into the sports area. In Detroit, they had the Hockey Town restaurant, where it was a Detroit sports themed restaurant. Obviously, you have primarily Red Wings, but they had Pistons stuff, they had Tiger stuff in there, they have Lions stuff. Have something like that. Have it, and almost I know Backyard Bistro has a lot of Hurricane stuff, but like really like play into it. That would be something that'd be really, really cool. And then also you look at what's right next door to PNC Arena of the State Fairgrounds. That attracts a lot of people every year. You build up these hotels around it. That could maybe help with some traffic around there with the state fair. But then if it doesn't necessarily help for that, that's more people coming in for that, to kind of entice the city, and the county, for that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just so much of this stuff just makes so much sense. And it is really frustrating to see it take so long. The wheels just keep spinning. Like we said, we know there is a lot of complicated moving parts in this, but it does just seem so beneficial to all parties. It is a bit head scratching as to why it is taking so long.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something we would all love to see move forward.
Yeah, we'd definitely love to see this move forward, and hopefully it is sooner rather than later. At the end of Luke DeCock's article, they did mention potentially in July, really having some more updates on that. So we will of course talk about that whenever more updates come out. But let us know what you guys are wanting to see with the PNC Arena renovations, the area around it, frustrations you're having with this. Let us all know. Tweet at the show at LO_Hurricanes, myself on Twitter at Jared E_1996, and Andrew on Twitter at ASchnit 53. And also comment on YouTube as well. We're having a lot of fun over there on YouTube. So, folks, make sure you're subscribed over there, have the notification bell turned on. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of the day, night, afternoon, whatever it was. Thank you. And as always, let's go Canes.